Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Wavelength.
Just because we're doing our lectures online doesn't mean that we need to then retreat and make life, all about being alone.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide.
I think there's not enough knowledge around the severity of the long-term impacts that a concussion can give you, and it's not really educated enough.
You should be having.
The minimum job search requirements is definitely problematic, and it is up to a computer to decide whether you receive your payments each month.
This is Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. I'm Grace and I'm joined by Cass.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so good, how are you?
I'm good. It's beautiful Monday night here in Adelaide.
It is.
It's
and
so
even
fantastic.
better because the Fringe is on.
Oh my God, this time of year, the city just lights up. It's amazing. And I don't know if all of our audience knows, but we're on Rundle Street. We're in the heart of the East End, and this place... It's bloody magnetic, let me tell you.
Buzzing. And it's like, they say like when summer happens, seasonal depression goes away. When Fringe time is on, it's taken to another level.
Yes, yeah. I am a Fringe girly at heart. I go there every single day. Even sometimes I leave the studio just to go get dinner there. I have a little drink or two.
Yeah, right?
It's fantastic. Well, before we jump in, I do need to acknowledge that we are recording Wavelength on the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respect to elders past and present.
We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations. At Wavelength every year, we have to dedicate an episode entirely to the Adelaide Fringe. It would be rude not to. And this year we have a jam-packed show with some incredible guests.
You're right, Grace. It is going to be absolutely massive. So strap yourselves in, Adelaide, and let's jump in. Tonight we have Mr. Rueben Kaye, we have Nina Oyama, we have Kyle Dolan, and we have Fiona Borthwick on the show. God, dreams do come true, don't they?
Can you believe it? I can't.
Yes, but right now, one of our newest Waver recruits, Jessica, is speaking with Fiona Borthwick, Senior Curator with Creative Health at the Hospital Research Foundation.
Take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Creative Health is a sub-branch of the Hospital Research Foundation Group. And Fiona, there is something really, really exciting happening with creative therapy for the 2024 Fringe.
Yes, we're really excited to bring back QT Quiet Time, this time QT Garden Club for the Fringe 2024. It's a beautiful performance that's created by local artists Ashton Malcolm and Josephine Fitzgerald, but performed this year by Ashton and her fellow artists Zoe and Elliot.
Wow, fantastic. Now, this initiative was stopped in its tracks for a few years. It was established in 2020, but has only come back over the past couple of years due to coronavirus. So the Fringe is a really, really important part of keeping this initiative moving forward.
It really is, because unfortunately, like you say, with coronavirus in 2020, we snuck the first performance in and then we went into lockdown. So with all the health concerns and everything over the last few years, we were able to bring another version back last year. Last year we had the artists writing and inviting people to engage with writing personal notes and messages to loved ones, which they then created beautiful origami hearts and puppy dogs and things like that for them to pass on to their loved ones. And this year we've got the garden club, so the performers are there making paper flowers for people as they pass by.
What a great initiative, and especially since when a lot of people visit a hospital, it has some negative connotations, but this is a really, really positive slant on it, isn't it?
It is. When you go into hospital, there's always a level of stress or anxiety if you're going in for an appointment, or if you've been walking around or trying to find a park for half an hour. You're often very, very stressed and you don't really feel like going into hospital. So having initiatives like this really makes a difference. It makes a difference to everyone's day. It gives them something joyful and bright and playful and a little bit weird, but in a wonderful way for people to have something to brighten their day and something good to remember about their day and their trip to the hospital.
So the Fringe this year has really helped to bring attention and publicity to this project, and with that, more attention and publicity to the Hospital Research Foundation Group and Creative Health.
Definitely. So by engaging with festivals like Fringe, we're able to reach a whole new audience and a whole new group of people that might not necessarily know about the Hospital Research Foundation or Creative Health or what we do. And it's really important for us to get our word out there because we're fully supported by donations and support of the Hospital Research Foundation. So to be able to provide initiatives like this, we do need the support of the community.
Definitely. And where do you see this initiative going in the future?
We would really love to be able to expand offerings like this to different hospitals, be able to bring artists back into the space to have more interactive experiences throughout the year, because we find when we do things like QT, people are always coming up to us and telling us how it's really benefited their day. They come in for appointments and they get distracted by the flowers or the performance that's going on in the courtyard, and they forget for a moment that they're there for an appointment at the hospital or there to get treatment. And that's what we're there for. We're there to really make it a healing environment and a welcoming environment and something positive about going into the hospital space.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks for that, Fiona and Jess.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Now, when I became a host of Wavelength, I had a list of people that I wanted to talk to, and our next guest, he was extremely high on that list, I can tell you that much.
Absolutely. He's a comedian, singer, writer, and you may know him from his unmissable Fringe shows, The K-Hole and Apocalyptic. He's back on South Australian soil following his hugely successful UK tour. It's the gorgeous, hilarious, and fabulous Rueben Kaye.
Oh my God, I can't wait. Shall we just play it? Let's just play it.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here, finally. I'm so excited.
Amazing. How long have you been performing at the Fringe?
Oh God, I started at the Fringe. I sort of went straight from womb to Rundle Square, to Royal Mall. I started in the Fringe in 2017. My first proper one-man show was started at Fringe.
So this is technically your, 7th birthday then, if you were born straight, there?
Yep, exactly.
What can people expect from your show?
Well, look, I've got two shows here, K-Hole and Apocalyptic. Now, the Apocalyptic is maybe part eulogy, part elegy, part Eastern Bloc Dog Day Afternoon. It's a story about the end of the world, which I think we can all agree we're kind of all worried about now, and it really feel like that. So I wanted something aggressive. It was also like the pressure that we could all laugh and maybe realize that if we're all going through the same thing, maybe we're all not so different, and maybe that even though we feel helpless, I mean, we're powerless. So there's a little bit of optimism in it, but it also tells the story of my uncle in East Berlin, who was a bank robber, who has lived a crazy life. It's a huge, overarching one-man musical about the human desire to be free. And it's me and my band. We're doing original songs. They're all bangers. We've done a tiny little preview in Perth, and then we're hitting the beach smoke and coming to Adelaide, the city of churches and sociopaths.
Oh.
I feel so safe.
For bangers and bank robbers. How exciting.
Bangers and bank robbers. That's it. Those are my pronouns now. And then the K-Hole is a late-night X-ray extravaganza. It's the party at the end of the world. It's messy. It's where I take my favourite acts from the Fringe and I tell them to get angry, get naked and get on stage.
You have a range of Fringe shows, including a showcase for the K-Hole and a solo show with Apocalyptic. How did these ideas for the shows manifest, or generally how do you plan shows?
Oh, well, I was raised in a broken home with too many mirrors, and this is result. So this is just what you get. The planning of the shows, I really don't do a lot of. I'm really a mess around and find out kind of performer. I believe the audience tells you what's funny, tells you what they want. So really my life has been spent on stage, letting the audience direct me. And so far they haven't done me wrong yet, but hey, there's always... Yeah.
It's all trial and error and nature and nurture, it sounds like.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. But that's how we evolve. If it's good enough for natural selection, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, exactly right. And in the 7 years since you were birthed onto the stage, how has the Fringe impacted your career? Is it something you schedule in the calendar and make sure you're free, or is it, if I haven't got a tour on, I'll go back, I guess?
No, it's a priority. It's a priority. It's not just a priority for me, it's a priority for a lot of people. It's a really rare thing in this world to find a city like Adelaide that, and I've said this before, that prioritises art not just in its psychology but in its economy. It realises what an earner art is, what an asset art and festivals like this are, and the money they bring in. And if anything, that justifies why we need more art in schools, why we need more art funded by the government, why we need more subsidies like that. Fringe is a huge, mammoth part of the international arts calendar for artists all over the world.
The Fringe is also a massive deal in Edinburgh, and you have performed at both. What are the most notable differences from Adelaide to Edinburgh?
Oh, the quality of the booze is better in Adelaide, but there's more of it in Edinburgh. In Edinburgh, you walk in to somewhere at 3 a.m. and there's a show happening. In Adelaide, though, there's amazing food and wine. There's WOMED right next door. You're in the middle of sort of the festival season of the year. So it's not as, dare I say, loose, but it's just as exciting. And the amount of artists that you see in Adelaide from Adelaide and the amount of Australian artists who are there trialling new work, making work, is so exciting. You'll see people who are going to be stars in 10 years, 3 years sometimes when you go to the Adelaide Fringe.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much, Rueben. And I think that what's really fantastic about Adelaide is being an Adelaide local, you kind of get so normalised to how our city is and every festival that happens all the time because there's always something going on. But I was having a little look just then and we have so much going on all of the time. We have the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, we have Fashion Week, we have the Guitar Festival, Adelaide Fringe, Film Festival, Cabaret Festival, we have the Feast Queer Arts and Culture Festival, we have Oz Asia. There's so many more that I'm not even mentioning of all sexualities, all different cultures, from sport to art to, theatres and all that kind of stuff. It's fantastic to see our city built on arts and supporting artists, and to hear it from an international star that there is something so special about this little place called Adelaide. It's just fantastic. It's so validating.
We are so spoilt for choice, and to hear someone who's not from Adelaide so passionate about it, it's so heartwarming and exciting, and it makes you so proud to be from Adelaide.
Absolutely.
And just like Rueben said as well, you can go see a show and then in 3 years, they'll be huge. And I think that ties really nicely into the next interview we have coming up about comedian Kyle Dolan, who was that person who's at the front of the shows that you finish near midnight going, here's a flyer for mine, please come. You're like, leave me alone, I want to go to bed.
Begging you to come to their show.
And it is such a fantastic success story.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. Before the break, we spoke with Rueben Kaye, and right now we have stand-up comedian and Grant Fringe recipient, friend of the show, Kyle Dolan.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
My name's Kyle Dolan, and I'm actually doing 2 shows in the Fringe. One is my solo show called No Place Like Home at Gluttony, and then the other one I host and produce a late-night show called Liars and Clans, also at Gluttony. Same venue, they're back-to-back, so it's kind of easy for me to go between the two. That's kind of what I've been doing.
How has the Fringe impacted your career as a stand-up comedian outside of the Fringe, with aspects such as publicity and the ability to get more shows?
It's been like the best training ground because it's audiences come and they scout shows, so it's been so good to experiment and just work on the craft and work on the craft and just figure out the style and everything, and then that kind of gives you more confidence outside the Fringe to kind of get more gigs and kind of work on things for the next year. And it's been a great networking experience. Most of my friends through comedy that I've met have been through the Fringe, so it's been this great sort of experience for that.
How different is the Edinburgh Fringe to the Adelaide Fringe in terms of audiences and the way it's laid out?
It's a completely different beast, really. It's about 10 or 15 times bigger. They have shows all day. They have shows starting at 10 a.m. that run through 3 a.m. So it's non-stop. The whole city is taken over, and there's venues everywhere. Every nook and cranny is a venue, and it's just incredible. It's a lot. It's very intense, but it's incredible. And there's a kind of big camaraderie around it because you're kind of going through all these mixed emotions with all the people around you. It is kind of these sort of ups and downs you feel together. And that's incredible. And I love doing it. It takes a lot out of you, but it's incredible at the same time.
As you are a film creator, has the Fringe helped or impacted that in any way in the selling of your short films?
It's been very good in terms of networking and meeting people, meeting performers and producers and people, and being able to invite people to my shows as well that I probably wouldn't have been able to meet if I didn't do these Fringe shows. You know, if I'd stuck with just filmmaking, it kind of would have been a longer way to go to meet these people. But then I was able to kind of say, "Here, I'm doing the show. You're able to come see it," and then like all these people were able to see what I do, and that's kind of helped build these connections that have begun.
Has Liars and Clowns helped with publicity of you being here at the Fringe and helped sell tickets as it is such a successful and popular show?
It's been that one's been a lot of fun. We actually on opening weekend had our 50th show, which was a lot of fun. It's a very chaotic, anything can happen show, very loose, and it's just so much fun. And what I enjoy about that one is like all the acts, it's a different lineup each night, but all the acts are so different from each other, and I try and book it so that you're not kind of get two of similar comedians on one night, and just being able to see that sort of, it's almost like a celebration of creativity and outside the box thinking. So like being able to see all these different approaches to comedy, because there's not just one way to be funny. That's been my favourite part of it, I think.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Right after the break, we're talking to comedian Nina Oyama. You're on Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. This is our special Fringe episode that you tuned into.
Yes, that's right. We've interviewed some amazing people this episode. And right now, Ella's speaking with Nina Oyama. Take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
What drew you to the world of stand-up comedy?
I started when I was 17 in high school, and I think I was just, you know, when you're like an angsty teenager and you're like, oh, no one's listening to me, I hate my life. And I think I was like, just wanted attention basically, because I was depressed.
How do you go about incorporating storytelling into your stand-up shows?
I mostly just do a brain dump where I kind of write everything that I think is funny in my life, or funny stories that I've heard or experienced, and like funny thoughts that I have. And then I find a common thread between all of them, and I start kind of putting them together based on the commonality of theme.
You recently received an Augie Award for your writing for Koala Man. How did you get into screenwriting?
I've actually loved screenwriting since I was a teenager. I've loved comedy shows. When I was in year 12, like my final year of high school, I wrote a comedy pilot script, and I think ever since then I've just really loved like creating dialogue and creating stories. And
you've described the Australian TV industry as risk averse. How does this impact artists and their ability to convey original work to Australian audiences?
People who give money to make Australian TV or have money to make Australian TV, I think a lot of them are sort of straight old white men, which is fine, like you're allowed to be that. But I think that they have trouble taking chances on new voices that might be a bit more diverse and exciting, because sort of feel like if they've failed, that'll be really embarrassing. Somebody said in Australia, when you pitch a TV show, they say, how are you going to ruin my career? Whereas when you pitch a TV show in America, they say, how are you going to make me rich? And I think that's like very much in the vein of like the way that executives in Australia work. But there's basically like 5 guys that like write TV in this country, and they all used to work on like All Saints and Water Rats, and they're the people that are more likely to get funded here. But it is really exciting. I think it's slowly changing, and I'm really hopeful for the future. But, you know, when you've been in a writer's room, but there's like 7 writers, and they're all like in their late 40s and married with kids. You don't have like a diversity of experiences there, which makes the stories like really homogenized and kind of boring.
With experience in both acting and TV writing, which is your favourite aspect of the process?
This is like my Sophie's choice. I think I'm more confident as a writer. Like, it's so good when you're a writer, you can write and you can write and you can create entire worlds. With acting, it's a little bit harder in that, like, you have to go to a studio and get there 2 hours earlier for like your hair and makeup, and then you have all these cameras pointing at you. And I think I sort of like love attention, which is why I like doing acting. But I like writing because it's so much like less work in some ways. Like, it's you don't have to worry about being perceived, or you don't have to worry about like how people are looking at you or how you're saying words. So I think they both have their merits.
Openly making jokes and discussing female pleasure has always been a staple in your stand-up. With these conversations starting to become more normalised and part of mainstream conversation, how do you think this shift is beneficial to our community?
I think it's good to like have more conversations about like female pleasure, and I think this focus has been on male pleasure for too long, and I also just love d***ing off. So what can I say? Female pleasure is inherently political. I think everyone should come to my show and listen to me talk about my pussy.
We're so excited for your upcoming Fringe show titled Nina Oyama is Coming. What would you say to people thinking about attending your show?
It's a really filthy show, so please just know going in that it's going to be disgusting. I think anyone that's seen my comedy before kind of knows the vein in which I'm threading in, but if you saw me on Utopia or Taskmaster and you're like, oh, like what a like nice little lady, I'm going to go support a show and bring all my kids and my grandma. Don't do that, because they will have a bad time. They won't have a bad time. They'll probably just like learn some things that they probably weren't ready for.
And what advice would you give to young Aussies looking to enter into the Australian arts industry?
Somebody told me this phrase, like a thing that was like, you can edit something bad, but you can't edit nothing. And I think that sort of like goes for the way you should approach art, which is just like go out there, do the thing, don't be afraid of it being bad, because by virtue of doing it, you'll just get better over time.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks so much for that, Ella and Nina. What an interesting interview.
It was fantastic. And you might know Nina Oyama from Utopia, Taskmaster, Koala Man. Personally, I watched Taskmaster and I was obsessed with it, and I was obsessed with her. I think she's fantastic.
I love Taskmaster. It is also so cool to see an Australian woman paving the way for other young women in a very heavily dominated male industry.
And being so confidently filthy about it as well. Ooh. Talking about the topics that need to be discussed. I love that the Fringe can be a little bit dirty sometimes, a little bit racy, a little bit filthy. Personally, that is my bread and butter.
It's perfect for us because we are gross girlies.
We are gross girlies, and I want to go and feel validated.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and we're going to go see it together, absolutely.
It's great because at the Fringe, there is a show where you will find your people.
Yes, and Nina, get ready because not only are you coming, which is the
name of the show,
but me and Grace are coming to your Fringe show, which is at the Garden this week.
Grubby Girlies Unite.
You're listening to Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. Wow, this episode has gone so incredibly quickly. If you're just joining us, it is our Fringe episode. Listen back when you can. It has been so much fun. It has been fantastic. I've had a ball with you, Grace, on a Monday night.
I'm so sad it's over.
In the heart of East End. Bloody hell, it's been great.
Oh, and now we have to wait another year for a Fringe episode.
Oh my God. But the Fringe is still on till the 17th of March, so we still have time to go have the best time, support local artists. It's all across South Australia, not just East End. A lot of the time people think of the Fringe, they just think of Garden or Gluttony, but there's so many venues. There's ones that are in Kangaroo Island, there's ones from Victor Harbour, there's Fool's Paradise in Victoria Square. Please go check them out. Please go support local artists. It's such an amazing time in Adelaide. Makes me so proud to be here.
Absolutely. It's spread right into the burbs. So there are some in people's homes.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. We are so spoiled here, and get amongst it, support local art. It's really fantastic.
And that brings us to the show tonight. Thank you all so much for listening. Please text us on your thoughts as well on 0428 927 927. We want to hear your thoughts on this episode, but also just the Fringe in general. What are you going to go see? What shows are you going to go see? What's your favourites? We need some recommendations.
We do. We'll be sitting here reading every single one. And make sure you're subscribed to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or all the other spots, anywhere else you get your podcasts. And you can listen back to our old episodes right now.
Wavelength.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.